We now have Edward Thomas, who's going to wrap up this PowerPoint session in no way that anyone else can. And he's had a very long career with the federal government through the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, as well as FEMA, and is currently the president of the Natural Hazard Mitigation Association, and also works locally as an attorney. And he is going to really kind of wrap up this discussion with focusing on the role of the community in this issue, and also emphasizing the public safety component of this. So here you go, Ed.
Thank you. Hey, good morning, everybody. Good morning. How are you doing? How many of you were here yesterday for the fantastic presentations? Let's see some hands here. Wonderful. Great presentations this morning, and I am honored to be here with you. My name's Ed Thomas. I come at this agreeing with everything that's gone before me and wanting to add a few words and a few thoughts to the discussion. Primary word I want to add that was not mentioned is misery. Ultimately, we're talking about misery when we talk about failure to design, build, plan safely. Misery to the environment, misery to disaster victims. I use the word victim. We're supposed to say disaster survivors. Before they're survivors, those that make it through, first they're victims. And let's talk about that a little bit. First, I want to talk about Natural Hazard Mitigation Association. I'd like you to look, if you would, please, at what we are. We're looking at nurturing local action, delivering education. We're an educational nonprofit charity. I'd like you to look at the roots of that tree and think of all the various organizations and groups that are involved in making a decision about what goes on at a particular parcel. We have engineers, we have architects, we have insurance people, we have insurance investors. We have a building official, a beleaguered building official. We have state government, sometimes there, sometimes not there. In Massachusetts, always there. And we have builders, we have investors, we have local officials. We have local officials who on Thursday had to lay off firemen. On Friday are going to be laying off some police officers. And on Monday, the local official is looking forward to having a cheery meeting with the other folks at City Hall to discuss the roof that they can't afford to repair that's leaking. And a developer comes in and says, I want to build right over here in this FEMA map nonsensical thing. And the income that you will get at the local level for allowing me to build this building, whatever it is 25 times what it would be if I put that a mile away, because we as a species like to live where we can see the water. It's more valuable and it brings in more tax revenues. And of course the local official is going to say, I think we have to really look out 100 years about resilience. And I think maybe we really shouldn't approve this. I like fantasies. Yeah, right. We need to educate, we need to do a whole lot of things, we need to bring a whole lot of people together that are going to think this through, and we're going to have to follow at some point the wonderful words of Mark Felt. Remember Mark Felt? Mark Felt? You know him by another name. Deep Throat. Follow the money. Ultimately, these are going to be about monetary decisions. A question for the group. What is the one single best form of disaster relief? There's only one best, absolute best form of disaster relief. Anybody?
Avoid the disaster.
Pardon me?
Avoid the disaster.
Avoid the disaster. Build safely, build properly, or as Ivy suggested, don't build in some areas. Think about your ability to evacuate. Think about all of the property and rights that people have and do not have. No disasters at all is the best thing. So we need to think about this from a thematic point of view. We need to think about this from the point of view of a systems analysis. And let me be very clear. We are not going to solve the problem of resilience and sustainability by focusing in on the flood insurance program. The flood insurance program is a portion, a symptom of a vastly larger problem, a problem of development, of disaster relief. And we're going to talk more about that. We need to have collaboration, and that's why I'm here. I want to collaborate with you all. So many of you I have never met. I've been in Massachusetts since 1970. I have done hundreds of presentations all over this nation, and I don't know many people in this room. So this is an exciting day for me to collaborate with you. We need, as Cynthia suggested, and as Rich clearly indicated, and as Ivy indicated, we need a system that better rewards good behavior. And of course, we would never punish bad behavior. We don't do that. But we would disreward it, perhaps. We need to recognize that we are making things worse just about every day. 1 cubic yard of fill at a time, 1 building at a time, 1 road at a time, 1 bridge at a time, improperly, unwisely constructed. We heard about that a bit yesterday. How are we solving the problem in Chelsea with respect to the flooding of the proposed federal building? Oh, we raised it 2 feet of fill, didn't we? So that's a problem solved in an area that already has stormwater management issues. I didn't hear the words low impact development. Some places, Tulsa, Oklahoma is a great example, Charlotte, Mecklenburg, North Carolina, Urban Drainage and Flood Control District are doing a splendid job, despite the fact that the deck is stacked against them. It is very hard to do the right thing because we're not doing enough to reward good behavior. We're going to talk about some initiatives that the Natural Hazard Mitigation Association is doing to educate and motivate at the local level. But first, I want to run through some basic thoughts. There are 3 major situations that we have as planners or engineers or architects or whatever role we play down at the roots of that tree when we look at development. The first is it's a new site. And that's the easiest to get right. But it is one that we very rarely do. How many of you have ever heard of forensic hydrology and hydraulics? I think we're going to see a lot more people being familiar with forensic hydrology and hydraulics because you can either do essentially a forensic analysis of all hazards at a site before whatever god-awful thing happens, or you have a lot of people that will come in with forensic fire science, forensic hydrology, forensic hydraulics, forensic earthquake science, and do it afterwards for the purpose of what? Litigation. You can pay me now or you can pay me later. We need to think this through ahead of time. We need to think about putting fill in a place that it was formerly a wetland. Did we take into account what we're going to be doing to the groundwater there? Did we take into account stormwater management issues? I wonder. Existing development, there's a lot we can do there. Oh boy, there's a whole lot that we can do there. And we can do it 1 building at a time. We can do it as, we talked about substantial damage, substantial improvement. We can do that for existing stuff. We can do warning, evacuation. We can do a lot of really neat stuff today. And we can weave in climate adaptation. We can try and get the greenhouse gases down. And then redevelopment. That's another opportunity we have. And for the first time in our nation's history, we're spending a lot of money on Hurricane Sandy, or Sandy. I never call it superstorm because guess what? That was no superstorm. Not even close to the worst that will inevitably happen in New York Harbor. We can do this right with a patchwork quilt approach of weaving together all the programs, and we'll talk about that in a second. Cynthia did a brilliant job was showing us how bad things are now today. Let me be really clear. We are not building and designing to yesterday's climate in this nation with respect to safe, proper, ordinary standards of care. The architecture, the engineering professions are letting down our side. Looking at yesterday's climate, we want to look forward. We have to be even vastly more careful than we have been. We have an opportunity. Chris Nelson, one of our nation's leading demographers, has published a thing that points out that we are in the process of expanding as a nation, building more, and redeveloping stuff to the point that in 2025, 2030, about half the buildings that existed in the year 2000 will not exist. We will see 50% either redeveloped or new construction. Huge difference and an opportunity there to get things right, substantial damage, substantial improvement, as we have new stuff, as we have changes in land use. The Army Corps of Engineers has this slide, and it's a wonderful slide. Talks about buying down risk with insurance and building codes and zonings, and since it's a Corps, levies, they throw that in. Ed would never put that up there. Because we have two levee systems in the United States, by the way, that are built and designed not to fail catastrophically. Dos. Mississippi Rivers and Tributaries Project, that was the first U.S. constructed major levee system, was designed, thought about, designed not to fail. The other one is the Novell New Orleans levee system, which is designed not to fail. Every other levee system in this nation, through failure of design, improper design, or design that was not carried out, is designed to fail. That includes the Hartford, Springfield, Holyoke. The whole levee system was designed in Massachusetts, designed not to fail. That's the design. And the design was not carried out. The design required 26 upstream dams that have never been constructed. Other than that, every levee system we have will fail, and fail catastrophically when it inevitably is overtopped with water. So we can buy down risks, but unfortunately that's not what we're doing. Instead, we're seeing us have inadequate warning systems. Think about New Orleans. Does anybody think we have a warning system that is really going to work in Springfield and Holyoke and Hartford and Westfield when that levee is inevitably overtopped? Sea level rise, are we taking sea level rise into account? Is that clear now? No, we're not taking that into account. Lack of awareness, lack of insurance, critical facilities not protected from flooding, improper design for things like water and sewage treatment plants. So much going on, increased development that's taking place, causing increased flooding. As we move water from one site to another site, all of that taking place, improper design, all of that leading to serious problems. So we're talking about the flood insurance program. Made it very clear that that is just part of a much larger issue. I have an opinion, and let me share it. The National Flood Insurance Program is the most cost-effective program of hazard mitigation in the history of this nation. It has taken us a huge step forward in terms of flood loss prevention. Has it had problems? You bet. Can it be done better? You bet. But is it the focal central problem? I don't think so. We've talked about a lot about what we can do to make it better. Let's talk about here in Massachusetts. Massachusetts has been a national leader with the flood insurance program and with flood protection and with prevention of flood, with things like the State Wetlands Protection Act, which is incredibly innovative. Yet, Massachusetts has chosen to handcuff local communities with respect to their ability to require additional height, to look forward into the future about how they're going to protect their infrastructure, their buildings, by limiting a local ability to require freeboard. And we'll talk about freeboard. We can sell, we can educate, we can tell people that they're better off elevating a home. We can talk about this in terms of how much it costs and what the benefits will be in terms of actual numbers. We can show how much it costs for extra elevation and how much you save over with current flood insurance rates. And you can see up here that you can save an enormous amount over the cost of building by having additional freeboard above the minimum standards of the flood insurance program. Local communities in Massachusetts cannot require that freeboard above the state minimum, which is at the base flood level, or the 1% flood calculation on inland areas and 2 feet on the coastal areas. Huge, huge savings. Look at this. And if you're talking about the velocity zone, the wave action zone on the coast, if you build 4 feet above the base flood level, looking forward into the future at sea level rise, looking at uncertainties, you can save just about $250,000 in flood insurance premiums over a 30-year period. We need to educate people as to this. We need to talk to the state building officials and see if we can persuade them to take the handcuffs off the local officials. We need to look at the system of disaster relief. In our nation, flood insurance is a sliver of what we pay out when we have a disaster. Just a sliver. Private market insurance, not flood insurance. Private market insurance pays out about 57%, and we have federal funds to the point that in the aggregate, this is before Hurricane Katrina, we had about 82, 83% of the dollar damages were paid by society. Federal money, private market insurance, okay? Post-Katrina, for every dollar in actual damage, not counting flood insurance, according to the Federal Reserve Bank of New York, society is paying out $1.25. Now, if you want to change behavior, when somebody has a dollar in damage and you give them $1.25, is that likely to produce much change? Does not include flood insurance. I love this droll line from the Federal Reserve Bank. They're saying that while we're paying a surplus, it's not clear that the money is actually going to the folks that deserve it. It's actually quite clear that it is not. Any of you that have friends down in New Orleans, they would be happy to share their horror stories about how difficult it has been for them to recover. I want to quickly mention a couple of things. How many of you have heard of the Kuntz case down in Florida? Supreme Court case, just a couple. It has produced tremendous alarm in the environmental community. I think that the case is an enormous opportunity for those of us that care about hazards and disasters to work together. The Supreme Court, one of the most conservative courts in the entire history of the United States, has endorsed the idea that we don't allow people to externalize their costs to other folks as they develop. And that is absolutely key to land use and what we're doing. We cannot have people continuing to push their costs off on other folks. And that is what is going on. People externalize their costs, and we cannot have that as a society. Who pays for disaster assistance? All y'all do. All y'all do. $1.25 per dollar of damage. Who benefits? Totally different group. You all pay through IRS casualty losses, through HUD, Community Development Program, gifts, known as grants, but they're gifts, and so many other things. And disaster victims, by God, they pay. But the money goes, the profits go to a totally different group. So when you look at Cynthia's slide 9, and you see the cost benefits, remember who's paying. Remember the tremendous cost benefit of higher regulatory standards, of higher building code standards. Tremendous cost benefit there. Who pays the cost? The developer. Who gets the benefits? Society. Profound thought for you to think about. It's not just the cost, but who pays, and who is the appropriate party to pay? Perhaps the person that's making the money, just as a thought. So we've got a lot of things within NHMA. We do publications like the Patchwork Quilt that talks about weaving together programs at the local level. We have a Resilient Neighbors Network where we try and bring together communities for peer-to-peer efforts. We have workshops that we put on. We write publications. We reach out to all sorts of non-traditional partners, like the Brookings Institute, like the American Bar Association, which is considering a national resilience initiative that we're very much part of. The Treasury Department, trying to get them involved in this. We're working with the Harvard Graduate School of Design on coming up with a clearer statement of standard of care, working with Kresge Foundation and a whole lot of other folks, and working with you. Suggested changes to federal policy, I think, would make things so much easier for folks at the local level. But most fundamentally, what I want to get across is that we really very much have to follow the message of Ben Franklin. First political cartoon ever published in the United States, talking about we had to bring the colonies together. We have to bring together all the various cylinders of excellence, these little groups that affect development and redevelopment in our nation so that we work together. So I'm proud to try and bring some thoughts to you as a cylinder of excellence, and I really very much appreciate this and look forward to the discussion. Thank you all very much.